the radio guy Mike Prince, and we got a bonus coverage going for you guys on today. We had Ryan McGinty on the Sunday Night Live edition, and man, the time went away so fast, we didn't get a chance to really discuss some of the main things that we really want to talk about, and we don't want to prolong it much longer, so we'll jump right into it. Ryan McGinty, you had a very unique relationship with a man who's no longer with us, but was very instrumental to the world of high school athletics, more importantly than anything, and that's King Arthur. Could you shed some light on some of the dynamics that King Arthur brought to the legacy of Houston high school athletics?
Well, I want to use the term, you have to say real, and he's probably realer to get terms. And if you know King Arthur, you know him like I know him, you've spoken with him on the phone, he has no problem telling you how he feels. And,
right.
Yeah, he was one of those, but he was the guy that I always believed, kind of like your philosophy, follow follow the teams that may not, may not be covered as much. And then one of them teams break out and, you're there and you can chronicle, their successful run. But he was a proponent of youth athletics, but he had an affection toward HID athletics, for sure. I mean, I met him at 20 years old, even though my dad knew him for a long time, but I didn't meet him until 20 at a Labor Day Classic game. And but then I started to work with him from there and went to the radio show. But he always believed in, covered HID first. I mean, and then secondly would be, probably Sport Ben or a coach he had a relationship with that, might have migrated to the suburbs. And then at the end of his career, he pretty much was like, well, you know what, sometimes covering all that is great, but at the same time, you got to cover the high story. So, at that time, he didn't care what school district he was in. A lot of times, people would laugh. But when King Arthur would show up to Austin, Texas to cover a state baseball tournament featuring, let's say, a team such as Memorial High School in Spring Branch against Round Rock, he was right there covering it. And, he had no cover, even though he cut his teeth at the Four Times, a historically black newspaper. But King Arthur believed in, obviously just taking care of the students first. And, and he went to his grave, in my opinion, just thinking about the students and making sure they was put in the best positive light. If someone, he was going to make sure to cover them if no one else would.
Absolutely. Even when you speak about him going to his grave, and I want to say he kind of got lost in the pandemic thing. Of course, everything kind of got set behind. But even while he was in his final days, he was trying to make sure that his paper was staying on point, meeting its deadline dates, and making sure that the coverage was still there, still doing what he could for the high school, as well as Prairie View and Texas Southern. And he did a lot of great, innovative things prior to what we're accustomed to right now, broadcasting games on the public access channels for the Houston high school teams, doing radio, as you made mention of, and of course, his legendary paper that he had that wasn't just in Houston, but it was in Dallas and all over the state of Texas, as you made mention to. And the reason I'm bringing him up, because he was a great loss, and like I said, kind of got lost in the shuffle at the time of his passing. And some things that were acknowledged over the past week with HISD, I'm going to call it, I guess, like a Hall of Fame, if you would, or a Wall of Honor. Didn't make it in his first round, and I'm just going to say it's kind of one of those oversight things, out of sight, out of mind. But that's something, obviously, that I believe is going to have to be addressed real soon.
Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah, and also there's a lot of people that was left out, that this Hall of Honor, because, I mean, you talk about a district that's, 100 years, I could be off a few years in terms of sports, 100 years old, pre-integration, and then you got, the integration era. So there's a lot of people left off, Hall of Famers in some leagues. I mean, think about it. Michael Strahan went to Westbury High School, NFL Hall of Fame. He might not play 1 or 2 years. he's not in it. But then, a lot of people will say, well, what did he do at Westbury? Which, I understand. But in King's case, he was there from day one. I want to say the George Floyd photo that circulated nationwide of him in a Yates uniform came from the Ford Times, if I'm not mistaken, and that was a King photo. King had that 35 millimeter with that flash after the game. There was no digital cameras then. You would have it sitting around with a strap. He would interview you, and he would take a picture of you, and then, it would be in the paper the next week or month or whatever. And he was a do-it-all type of guy. And, I wish he got his solid while he was still there. But, the man fought for, a lot of people don't realize, too, the PBIL. He had a very good relationship with Charles Pfeiffer, the executive director of UIL. And he was kind of behind the scenes, was one of the people that kind of helped them to include those records with the UIL records, the PBIL and the UIL. So he, and that's still from a relationship. They remember him at Utah High School when he was a coach. So King, I think, is probably one of the hardest workers I've ever counted in this business. And remember, that wasn't his main job. That was his side job when it's all said and done. But his passion was sports and covering youth in Houston.
Yes, sir. And some unselfish hours that he gave of his life, personal time, for the enhancement of local student athletes. And for the most part, when you think of King Arthur, you think HBCU, but he was diverse, man. He didn't just cover you because you were black only. He covered you if you were connected to the HISD, in most cases the state of Texas. He was going to get that camera, have that pen behind his ear, and go to work. And he was definitely something. I met him later on, not as entrenched as you were with him, but right away we hit it off. A great impact, very knowledgeable, and was always paid attention to detail. And sometimes you're like, really, King, man, you were focusing on that? But when you sit back and look at it, that was part of what made him great, man.
Oh, if we were going to cover a game, you would find something, like you said, it's like, nah, I'm not here to worry about, but ironically, I first really connected with him during the Vince Young, the standout quarterback at Madison High School era. And then also, covering Prairie View at Texas Southern, I was seeing, because he always, as funny as it sounds, King always the key is you to do well. Because, because it's so tied to HID in so many ways. So I met King doing that run, and then you got to meet coaches and stuff. And King was probably sometimes, in reality, outside of Ralph Hoover, he was probably some of the first interviews for a lot of these guys, because King had connection with certain coaches, and they would tell him about this up-and-coming guy before anyone else. By the time they got to the Houston Chronicle, King Arthur knew about him, because you had coaches telling you, this guy's going to be good. This guy, I met Clarence McKinney somewhat through King Arthur, because King Arthur always believed in Booker T. Washington. He always laughed about that. Even though I know where King lived, I won't say where he lived. He lived near Booker T, but he didn't live near Booker T. But he
right.
He just had an affection for Booker T. And when Clarence McKinney, the coach at TSU, was calling plays for Booker T, King would always, that McKinney, he's going to be up and coming. Oh, that's Bug. That's his nickname on the street. That's Bug. He calling the plays. I'm going to watch out for him. I'm thinking, okay, whatever. And lo and behold, look where he's at now. But then he said that, too, before one of our last conversations with King. He sat with McKinney right before his press conference, and they kind of looked at each other like, man, he really at this point right now. It was kind of like a deja vu moment, because King was real tight with his dad, who went to Yates. And his dad, McKinney's dad, was if he disagreed with something he said on the radio, he had no problem calling you and tell you how he felt.
Absolutely.
You don't have no kind of guy who I can argue with you at 5:30, and then at 6:30 we can talk over a beverage of choice about my opinions and stuff. But I think he's one of the last of those eras.
Well, he's definitely what we would call an OG for sure, you know. And like you said, he had the demeanor where he could tell you straight up and down if he thought you was right or wrong, and like I said, and then go break bread with you like nothing ever happened. And that's become a lost art. A lot of people take stuff so personal now. If you disagree with them, they don't want to speak to you. They block you. They 86 you, and they try to trash your name and reputation to the rest of the industry. He just kind of lets you do what you do and say what you say. And when the dust, if he saw some value in what you were doing, he would let you know, hey, I think you did a great job, or you could have did this a little bit better. And it was always good to be able to be on the inside lane, to be able to have access to a guy like King Arthur. I think in our industry or in any industry abroad, you don't get many people that come through that have the impact, seen and unseen, such as a King Arthur. And even though, you know, he's no longer with us, some of his work is going to continue on. Some of the people that he's impacted are going to continue to move forward for some of the great things that this man did that people would probably never get a chance to fully understand nor appreciate.
Oh, definitely. And that's the thing. I think in some cases he was ahead of his time before social media could help expand your message.
Right.
And you really look back at it, because I remember, and I joke with a coworker all the time, when Johnny Cole, of all, you know, people, when he first took the Texas Southern job in 2008, I remember King was doing a video, was trying to do a video show online to watch, and Cole was his first guest on there, or one of the first guests. At that time, I was like, why would you be doing video type stuff? Ain't no one's going to worry about watching that on the internet. Fast forward 20 years, 12 years now, look. But, I mean, you just remember little things like that in your life, like, man, you know, and this guy was kind of ahead of the curve. And I also want to bring up one of our co-workers who was on the show, Big John Chandler. I don't think you might have not had the opportunity to meet him. He was on there too with King. Unfortunately, he passed away. I found out about a month ago.
Wow.
And that was hard from that point, because I kind of, you knew he was sick, but you kind of lost track of him. Whatever, and the pandemic definitely didn't help. And so, we was a 4-panel show, in early mid-2000s, and now just 2 of us left, myself and Daryl Hardison. And both of us, we were talking about him when I saw Daryl recently. He showed Miss Kate, just like a sailor in some aspects, but, and they even make you mad. But, it's just one of the you like it, you know what I mean? He was just the type of guy, and he would call you, mate. I was just talking to a guy the other day. He said, man, I had time to call me. I know how he like to be long-winded on the phone sometimes. I didn't answer because I know he's going to talk an hour or two. And he's like, but you know what? I should have answered at that time. That was the guy's last thing he told me the other day.
Wow.
And I should have answered that day because I now heard from him in a minute. They're going to find out he passed. I just didn't know. I said, yeah. I said, that's how he works, man. But
and I tell you something else. A lot of people really don't understand nor appreciate, even through his sickness, he was steady grinding. He was steady doing what he needed to do, traveling to Dallas, believe it or not, traveling all over the city to make sure his paper got distributed. As a matter of fact, we helped him start distributing his papers toward the final runs, to help take some of the burden off of them. And a lot of people probably wasn't aware of that, but we would meet up and go distribute those papers, man, and do what we could to help him out. Great dude, man. And like you say, you knew where you stood with King Arthur, whether he was on the positive side or the negative side of him, and you had to appreciate that and respect that. It's a shame that sometimes people are not really thoroughly appreciated until they exit stage left in life. But I made a commitment that I'm going to do what I can while I can to help this legacy continue to move forward. Well, we want to thank you so much for helping us recapture and remember some of the greatness of King Arthur, and it definitely won't be the last time we get a chance to talk. I am the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. I want to thank you guys so much for this bonus coverage of the Ryan McGinty interview and remembering King Arthur. Until the next time, you guys be blessed. We'll see you on the other side.